Today, I'm going over the section in Chapter 12 called the Sane Curriculum. Only love is strong because it is undivided. The strong do not attack because they see no need to do so. Before the idea of attack can enter your mind, you must have perceived yourself as weak. Because you attacked yourself and believed that attack was effective, you behold yourself as weakened. No longer perceiving yourself and your brothers as equal and regarding yourself as weaker, you attempt to equalize the situation you made. You use attack to do so because you believe that attack was successful in weakening you. All right, what is this paragraph talking about? It's talking about that when we identify with ego, we think that we are weak. He's reminding us that love is strong because it is undivided. Why is that true? Because we are all one. There is no division. But from the ego's perception, there is. We are all separate. We can be weak. We can be victimized. That's our justification for attacking and defending. But it's all false. What we really are is love, and we are undivided. That is our truth. That is why the recognition of your own invulnerability is so important to the restoration of your sanity. So what is the recognition of our own invulnerability? That we never die. We are eternal beings. We are all one, and we are one with God. That is why we are invulnerable. And the only way to restore our sanity is to perceive that. Perceive correctly, to perceive our truth. For if you accept your invulnerability, you are recognizing that attack has no effect. Meaning, when we identify with spirit, we are recognizing that we are not ego and therefore cannot be attacked. Although you have attacked yourself, and you will be demonstrating that nothing really happened. How have we attacked ourselves? By perceiving that we are ego. Anytime we do that, we are attacking ourselves. However, when we choose to identify with spirit, we are demonstrating that nothing really ever happened. Therefore, by attacking, you have not done anything. How is that true? Because nothing's ever happened. The world is not real. We're just having a dream. Once you realize this, you will no longer see any sense in attack, for it manifestly does not work and cannot protect you. Yet the recognition of your invulnerability has more than negative value. If your attacks on yourself have failed to weaken you, you are still strong. You therefore have no need to equalize the situation to establish your strength. So when he's putting equalize in quotes, he means that from an ego perspective, we're trying to get back at someone or make something right because we believe that we have been wronged or victimized. We don't need to do that when we are identifying with spirit. And when he says, if your attacks on yourself have failed to weaken you, you are still strong, he means when you are identified with spirit. You're still strong if you don't believe in the ego. You will never realize the utter uselessness of attack except by recognizing that your attack on yourself has no effects. For others do react to attack if they perceive it. And if you are trying to attack them, you will be unable to avoid interpreting this as reinforcement. Okay, he's just talking about identifying with ego here. Until we realize that attack on ourselves or anyone else has no value, has no effect, we will still be stuck in the ego's perception. But when we begin to identify as spirit, we begin to realize that attack is utterly useless. Why do others react to attack if they perceive it? Because they're identifying with ego in that circumstance. And he's telling us that if we are trying to attack them, meaning we perceive that we're being attacked and then we try to attack back or defend, that we will be unable to avoid interpreting this as reinforcement, meaning we will just be reinforcing the ego. The only place you can cancel out all reinforcement is in yourself, meaning we can't do anything out in the world. It has to be done within our own mind. We have to forgive within our own mind. That is how we learn to identify with spirit, is by practicing forgiveness, overlooking what has never really occurred, what has never happened in the world, overlooking the world of form to see spirit, to see the truth, forgiving the world for what has never really happened. We do that within our mind, then we are reinforcing spirit, and that is what heals our mind. For you are always the first point of your attack, and if this has never been, it has no consequences. So why are we always the first point of attack? Because there's only one of us. So if we are attacking what we think is someone else out there, we're actually attacking ourselves. And he's saying, if this has never been, it has no consequences, because the world has never been. None of this attacking and defending has ever actually even really happened. It's all part of the illusion. So if we perceive that, if we perceive correctly, that the world has never been and nothing has ever happened, then there will be no consequences, meaning a split mind, an unhealed and sick mind. We won't have that if we identify with spirit. The Holy Spirit's love is your strength, for yours is divided and therefore not real. Our mind is divided. A divided mind is not real. And the Holy Spirit's love is our strength, because that is our truth. That's where the oneness is. You cannot trust your own love when you attack it. You cannot learn of perfect love with a split mind, because a split mind has made itself a poor learner. You tried to make the separation eternal, because you wanted to retain the characteristics of creation, but with your own content. Yet creation is not of you, and poor learners do need special teaching. All right, what does this mean? A divided mind is weak. That's us. We have a split mind. Holy Spirit's mind, which is not split, which is love. That is our strength. We cannot trust ourselves when we are identified with ego. That's when we do all this attacking and defending. We cannot learn of perfect love when we have a split mind, because a split mind in itself is a poor learner, right? As long as we're identifying with ego, we're not going to hear spirit. We're not going to learn the truth of who and what we really are. We tried to make the separation eternal. That's us mentally reviewing the tiny mad idea, us thinking, I wonder what it would be like to be separate from God. That's that tiny mad idea, which really was over in an instant. But we have been mentally reviewing that instant over eons of time. That is how we have tried to make the separation eternal. And in that tiny mad idea where we wondered what it would be like to be separate from God, we wanted to replace this false world that we made with our own content. We wanted to be the boss, is what he's explaining to us here. But he's reminding us that creation is not of us. It is of God. And that poor learners do need special teaching. That's us. We're poor learners because our mind is split and because we are believing the ego. That's why we need a special teaching. That's what this course is. It's a special teaching to help us awaken, to help us heal our split mind. You have learning handicaps in a very literal sense. There are areas in your learning skills that are so impaired that you can progress only under constant, clear-cut direction provided by a teacher who can transcend your limited resources. That's his very polite way of explaining to us that our mind is seriously handicapped, and we need to be reminded of the truth and have our mind guided by Holy Spirit to heal us in a very literal sense, he says. He's telling us that we are so impaired that only by following Holy Spirit will we be able to heal. We can't do it ourselves. There's no way. He's reminding us how resistant we are to learning. That's the ego part of our mind. He becomes your resource. Because of yourself, you cannot learn. That's Holy Spirit. Or Jesus, if you choose Jesus to be your guide and your teacher. The learning situation in which you placed yourself is impossible. And in this situation, you clearly require a special teacher and a special curriculum. Poor learners are not good choices as teachers, either for themselves or for anyone else. You would hardly turn to them to establish the curriculum by which they can escape from their limitations. If they understood what is beyond them, they would not be handicapped. All right, that's all a fancy way of saying that ego has no way to heal our mind on its own. It's not possible. It's unable to do that. We need the help of Holy Spirit to allow Holy Spirit to enter our mind, to heal our mind, to help us to perceive correctly. We need that. It's kind of funny to me because I'm a teacher by profession, and he's using terms here that we would use in a school about special education. The resource room, the resource teacher. This is all vocabulary that is used in education, talking about helping students who are handicapped to learn. But what Jesus is telling us here is that we are all special ed students. We are all severely handicapped in our mind, and that we've lost our way. And we need a special teacher and a special curriculum, which, by the way, is your life, which is already pre-planned, already scripted out by Holy Spirit. That's why we need to just let Holy Spirit guide us through our life. It's all pre-planned, and it's all there to teach us. Your life is your classroom. What happens in it is your curriculum. The goal is to practice forgiveness every time you feel not at peace. Every time you are incorrectly perceiving with the ego. The goal is to switch your perception over to spirit. The ego is incredibly resistant to this. It will do everything it can to not do that. It will do everything it can to keep attacking and defending and believing the world is real, believing in lack, believing in separation. So that's why we need a special teacher and a special curriculum, because our mind is seriously handicapped. So if we understood our truth, we would not be handicapped, is what he's telling us. You do not know the meaning of love, and that is your handicap. True. The ego does not know the meaning of love, and that is our handicap. Do not attempt to teach yourself what you do not understand, and do not try to set up curriculum goals where you have clearly failed. In other words, don't listen to ego. Ego has no idea what it's doing. Ego keeps trying to replace God, to replace Holy Spirit, to have us follow the ego's plan. But he's telling us that that is failure if we do that. We want to follow Spirit's plan. And we do that by giving our mind over to Spirit, by letting Spirit guide us. Your learning goal has been not to learn. And this cannot lead to successful learning. So the ego's goal has been, don't learn the truth, don't learn about love and light, don't learn that your mind is healed. No. And he's saying that that does not lead to successful learning. You cannot transfer what you have not learned. And the impairment of the ability to generalize is a crucial learning failure. Would you ask those who have failed to learn what learning aids are for? They do not know. If they could interpret the aids correctly, they would have learned from them. This is all a fancy way to say ego knows nothing. Ego is an idiot. Don't listen to the ego. I have said that the ego's rule is seek and do not find. Translated into curricular terms, this means try to learn, but do not succeed. The result of this curriculum goal is obvious, right? What is the goal? To keep you in circles, to keep you in the ego loop, to keep you trapped in the ego's illusion. Every legitimate teaching aid, every real instruction, and every sensible guide to learning will be misinterpreted by the ego, since they are all for facilitating the learning this strange curriculum is against. If you are trying to learn how not to learn, and the aim of your teaching is to defeat itself, what can you expect but confusion, he's saying. So he's being very funny to me and explaining over and over again, stop listening to the ego. The ego knows nothing. The ego wants you to seek and never find any answers. The ego wants you going in circles. Of course you're confused when you're following the ego. Such a curriculum does not make sense, meaning the ego's curriculum. This attempt at learning has so weakened your mind that you cannot love. For the curriculum you have chosen is against love and amounts to a course in how to attack yourself. So this is a Course in Miracles teaching us how to love ourselves, and the ego's curriculum is teaching us how to attack ourselves. So he had put learning in quotes because the ego isn't really learning anything. He's telling us the ego has weakened our mind, so much so that we cannot love. We don't even know what real love is. We only know the ego's interpretation of special love, which of course always leads to special hate as well. So the ego's curriculum is against love. The ego doesn't want us to know what real love is. And that's why the ego teaches us how to attack ourselves. And remember, even if you appear to be attacking someone else out in the world, that is yourself, because we are all one. So whatever we believe others are is what we believe that we are. So if we are attacking others, we are attacking ourselves. A supplementary goal in this curriculum is learning how not to overcome the split that makes its primary aim believable. And you will not overcome the split in this curriculum, for all your learning will be on its behalf. Yet your mind speaks against your learning as your learning speaks against your mind, and so you fight against all learning and succeed, for that is what you want. But perhaps you do not realize, even yet, that there is something you want to learn, and that you can learn it because it is your choice to do so. All right, so a lot of these words are talking about how the ego just wants us to get lost and doesn't want us to learn and is teaching us all the wrong things, all the things to make us feel stuck, and how resistant the ego is to real learning. But then he's reminding us at the end of this paragraph that there is a part of our mind that does want to learn. That's the spirit part of our mind. That's us wanting to awaken to our truth. And he's saying that you can learn it because it is your choice to do so. Because our true self of who we really are, which is spirit, does want to awaken and learn the truth. It is our true choice to do so. The ego has just been tricking us to believe that we don't want to learn this. And that's because the ego doesn't want to die. You who have tried to learn what you do not want should take heart. For although the curriculum you set yourself is depressing indeed, it is merely ridiculous if you look at it. Jesus is always gently roasting us throughout the Course. He is reminding us here that our belief in the ego's perception is depressing. And that as long as we are identified with ego, we keep trying to not learn our truth. And that's why it's depressing. And ridiculous is what he's saying here. Is it possible that the way to achieve a goal is to not attain it? Resign now as your own teacher, right? Stop trying to teach yourself. Do not identify with ego. Don't let ego be your perception. This resignation will not lead to depression. So if we decide not to identify with ego and instead identify with spirit and let spirit be our teacher, then we will not feel depressed. It is merely the result of an honest appraisal of what you have taught yourself and of the learning outcomes that have resulted. So we taught ourselves that we are separate, that we are lacking. that we can attack and be attacked. And what was the outcome of that? Depression, unhappiness, non-peace, fear. Under the proper learning conditions, which you can neither provide nor understand, right? Again, we have to let Holy Spirit do that. You will become an excellent learner and an excellent teacher. So when we give our mind over to Holy Spirit, now we have become an excellent learner and an excellent teacher as we practice forgiveness. Again, we don't have to use our words. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to convince anyone of anything to be an excellent teacher. We just have to practice forgiveness within our own mind. But it is not so yet, and will not be so until the whole learning situation, as you have set it up, is reversed. So the way that we set up our situation was that ego was in charge. So he's saying we need to reverse it and let spirit be in charge. And that is how we correct this learning situation that we find ourselves in. Your learning potential, properly understood, is limitless because it will lead you to God. You can teach the way to Him and learn it if you follow the teacher who knows the way to Him and understands His curriculum for learning it. That's Holy Spirit. The curriculum is totally unambiguous because the goal is not divided and the means and the end are in complete accord. You need offer only undivided attention. Everything else will be given you, for you really want to learn aright, and nothing can oppose the decision of God's Son. His learning is as unlimited as He is. So He is reminding us again that we need do nothing but give our mind over to Spirit, to let Spirit guide us. How to perceive, what to say, what to do, where to go. Let your intuition, your inner knowing, that's Holy Spirit, let it guide you. We don't need to figure anything out. The ego's curriculum is all wrong and only keeps us depressed and confused. But if we let go and get out of the way with our silly, ridiculous ego beliefs and allow Holy Spirit to take over our mind and cleanse our mind, then we will be learning correctly from the correct teacher with the correct curriculum that will heal our mind.